Hey doctors, Dr. Rader here. I want to go over a short training here with you on calls, um, phone calls to the practice, right? If anyone has followed me some, they've learned that one of the things that I talk about a lot is the fact that a lot of the money in a practice is lost on the phones. And coming from someone who was primarily a referral practice for the first 3 or 4 years, 5 years of my career, and then moving in to a highly marketed practice for the next 10, 12 years, I learned a few things about phones and properly taking care of your phones and being able to create a practice where it's accountable to the phones, because in a normal traditional practice, that has a $3,000 case value, if you botch 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, let's say that you botch 5 calls in a month, what does that mean to a practice? So if you botch 5 calls, that's 5 calls times botch those candidates, which could have been potential true starts, at $3,000 a case. So if a practice has a $3,000 case fee, right, or for start in their practice, and let's say they have 5 new patient calls that were botched in 1 month, okay, because the people at the front desk aren't properly trained, not accountable, no one's watching. So you take 3,000 times 5 is already $15,000 this practice has lost in 1 month, plus the amount of money it costs to market that person. Let's say it costs $250 a piece to get those 5 phone calls. So basically, what, $12.50? Another $12.50 for marketing, okay? And so you can see how this quickly adds up. And to do a smaller practice, that's pretty traumatic if you're spending a decent amount of money on marketing. So why not train? Why not train your phones? Okay? Why not get proper training? Okay? Why don't you have accountability? Okay? Through stats. Okay? So this is huge, right? And so most doctors, they're always looking for these other things, but really, it can be very simple. And if you see that the phones, and the quickest way to know this is, the quickest way to find out you got problems is have your phones recorded, okay? Someone does a mystery call, they call into your practice, they listen to your phones, and most doctors have never even heard the phones, right? They just overhear it as they're in the practice, but they don't actually get a recording from their practice that shows exactly what's going on, and the front desk doesn't know it's coming. So if you're not monitoring this, if you're not tracking the number of calls, new patient calls, you're not tracking the number of schedules, and you're not tracking the number of shows on a percentage basis, you're losing money. Every practice is losing money. I don't care if it's a big practice. A big practice is losing more money. A smaller boutique practice is losing money, but not even as big as a larger practice. And I find the bigger practices have bigger problems on the phones than even some of the smaller practices. Okay? And so most people, when I start new doctors in my consulting business and I record their phone calls, they cannot believe what they just heard. And this is 10 out of 10 people. There's typically not one good call that I hear out of 10 calls that I have recorded, right? There may be one that was decent, but it's not good. It's really not good. And so just something to think about, right? Just something to think about, okay? Just look at the numbers. Just look at these numbers, okay? And so if a doctor's struggling to, say, hit 50,000 and they can't get there, they keep getting stuck around 30, they just can't figure it out, well, maybe they're botching 4 or 5 calls a month that could have been converted, right? And so I always talk about this. One last thing I'll go over here is we've got this box, right? This is our new patient box. Okay? This is our new patient box here. Okay? And so at the top here, we have this portion of people. Say it's, well, let's just say it's around 20 to 25% of people. This top percentage of all the new patients that you have in your practice, this top 20 to 25% are people that are basically going to be easy conversions. They're referrals, maybe a few scattered marketed people that are sold on what you do. They bought in, they've been attracted to you. They're pretty easy conversions, okay? They're pretty easy conversions. They're up for care, they're ready to go, they think you can help them, okay? So this bottom 20% to 25% or so, roughly, okay, this bottom is people that aren't going to start. These people are not good for the practice. They're not going to find help there. They're not a good candidate. They maybe not have a good attitude. It's just not going to be a good fit for whatever reason. This is just not going to happen, okay? And it shouldn't happen. These folks should not be in the practice. They could be served better elsewhere. This middle 50% or so, okay, this middle 50% or so, this is where all of this makes a big difference. Okay? All of this makes a big difference here. So the practices that are only converting the top 20 to 25% because that's all the better the game is, they're going to have a practice that's just going to peak out. That's why most referral practices are peaking somewhere between 15 and 25, 30,000. They can't get above that because they're only tapping into this top point. They're not tapping into here because all areas of the game have to be better, including their phones. The more people we get converted over here on the phones, the better our phone training is, the better our systems are, the better our culture is, the better our customer service is, the better our results are, the more we can tap into this. This is where the size of the practice comes in. The better a doctor is at converting in this middle part of the container, the bigger the practice is. And the happier, the better, the more the practice thrives, and the more the practice can scale. So I hope some of you find this helpful, and we'll talk to you soon.